display is going to stay here. 3 or 4 of the presenters are going to be using this. So if your view of the PowerPoint and behind it is blocked in any way, you may want to take a chance to shift before we get started. If you're comfortable with the setup, then stay where you are. Further to Paul's mention about the guests, I see a lot of familiar faces from the CSC and from the IATSE groups in town. Thank you very much for coming. It was great that your leadership was willing to share the information about tonight's meeting with you, and great that you could join us. It is exciting times in the camera world. As a manufacturer of lenses that doesn't have a horse in the camera race, we sure like all cameras equally, and every time there's a lot of buzz about a camera, that sure helps on the lens side. So we're trying something a little new today. We've got a large number of presenters with a fairly short time allotted to each of them. At the end of the it will be 6 independent presentations. At the end of the presentations, they'll all come back up to the stage for what we're hoping is a nice interactive and lively discussion, question and answer period for you guys to engage with them all independently or together as a group. We'll see where that goes. Sadly, not long ago, I got a note from our friends at Hitachi. Unfortunately, Rich Kramer had a family emergency and isn't able to join us at the last minute. So that's where we did lose one presenter, one presentation on the evening. So, you know, if you had anything specific to him, certainly follow up with him after the evening, and he'll follow up with you directly. Without further ado, our first group up are the good folks from AJA Video Systems. We've got John Ladle, who's the Central Sales Manager of the Americas, and Jim Delwich, the Conversion Product Manager. John and Jim, come on up. Sorry, there's a threesome.
I'll just, well, he's the AV guy. Yeah, please. Look at what he can do. Great to push my buttons. I tried to. We thought 4K event, maybe show some 4K. Like the thing. If it was a beer party, we would have brought beer. So you have to wait for part 2. It's being posted right now. So we have been in business 22 years, and in the course of those 22 years, we have not picked up enough mortal enemies. So we decided to enter the camera fray and bring this technology out there and make some new friends and maybe new enemies. No. So it's an interesting camera concept that we came up with. We've been glued to post for years and high-end post-production and doing a lot of the OEM on that end, and even 4K projection for digital cinemas. But we decided to present a 4K camera with a form factor that you could pick up. 6 pounds you can pick up. And do things like our conversion line has always been famous for, is everything constantly on. So in this camera's case, you have all 6 outputs live and hot. 3 of them 4K, 3 of them HD, as well as having video sent down an Ethernet pipe, as well as video on the side, as well as recording on board with just a shipping camera. So we thought that was kind of unique as far as the connectivity. And then some of the other things that were kind of screaming out to our product managers when they were working is open design, where you could actually take basic parts and have cheese plates that worked already with the parts that you have or that parts other manufacturers have. And you'll see we even have 3 manufacturers making 9 different lens mounts, not adapters, not losing stops, actual lens mounts that you can just replace and do. So we thought this was kind of a refreshing take on a camera instead of necessarily building a cage or things. So we've got some cover boys. These guys, I had not guessed that they'd be on the cover of a magazine there. Our president and our product manager. But they are operating a camera on Film and Digital Times, which is a really good resource for cinematography. And we're marching on. We released this camera right at the new year. Because again, we're a camera company now. That's what I'm told, we show cameras. And so we did a number of things. Basically, we're giving more post options inside the camera, and we're brightening the picture up, as well as a number of other things. But when we made this camera, you know, we put the IR filter, we made all the physical things we possibly could to get really good flesh tones and really good reds. So just recently we improved the IRE levels just with this last update from NAB. And again, you can see when you RGB parade, this gets a lot closer to where we want to be. And further things, you know, we're taking a lot of feedback. We won't pretend that on Christmas we got it right with our first camera. We've taken a lot of feedback and we're getting, people are very good at giving feedback, by the way. Just got to kind of sit back and sort it out. But now we have in-camera watts for monitoring, and you can see the night and day difference that we get. Because one of the things with the production camera, it's not a reality TV show camera. You run around with 6 guys shooting something. What you see is what you don't want to screw up when you want to happen. And so, you know, we put that together. And so now we have a variety of what strategies as being able to grab things. And here we are, just case in point, you know, just looking at a chart. Disable the gamma or with the video apply. And again, that's a night and day difference, especially you won't freak out DPs. So, you know, things like that. But again, something we solved that everyone, I feel, probably wanted to do but didn't have a good answer was post. You literally just take this and walk up to your laptop and edit 4K raw, post, bam. We happen to do a ProRes workflow right here, just connecting it via Thunderbolt or USB 3. And by the way, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. We built these for Canon and other cameras you could use. But now, strange things are happening. We even have partners that are using our native RAW that we send out, and they're capturing up to 60p, true 60p RAW on their devices, and they're going to have the upgrades available this summer, Atomos and Convergent, which we're not usually known for being all that cuddly with, but it's unique times, and the industry is maturing. One other thing, you know, again, we make great video cards, if you hear me tell it, but we put out free software for our own capture, and oh hey, we just added on the PC capture up to 4K 120 RAW on the computer. And then if you're on Apple, just because they've kind of, you know, moved away to a more modular solution, we're 4K 60p, and you can get that also with the IO 4K. So the neat thing is the workflow is pretty solid. You can just walk up to anything that does ProRes, and every editor does that, or you can walk into any of these applications, you know, Adobe, etc. So I wanted to bring Mr. Jim here to talk about some of the glue pieces that we make for the industry, as he helps them out.
Hi. Yeah, we thought while we're here, we'd show you a couple things we have to help with your on-set ingest stuff, monitoring solutions and the like. This first one is a 4K down converter, both HDMI and SDI out. It's really handy to have on set. Another thing we have is HDMI. This is a 4K HDMI monitoring solution. 4 SDI ins into HDMI 4K out. This is the other direction. We also do the HDMI in to 4K SDI for capturing for inexpensive cameras or the like. And the last thing that I have to show you is fiber optic solutions for 4K. This you can bolt on the camera and convert your 4K to four single mode fibers. We have this on the standard NAV, both sides of this, so it's really nice for putting your camera on sticks and having fiber optic connectivity. I think that's what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John and Jim. Next up, we've got Sebastian Lafou from Arri. Sebastian, who many of you know both in all three of the worlds here, SMPTE, who he's done several papers for in the past, CSC and IA. Sebastian from Arri, the technical sales manager for the Eastern region, will be queued up in 3, 2, 1. Almost go. All right.
Everybody hear me?
He's much
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Since we are on the topic of acquisition, I'll be talking about acquisition and deliverable and how we do acquisition at Arri today, starting with our sensor, how it's got to be sensor in the Alexa camera and the Amira camera today. We'll have a chance to look at a couple of short clips and I'll explain what we have in terms of recording codecs for deliverables. Here is the sensor, meet Aleph. Aleph was developed to emulate really the geometry, the dynamic range, and the color performance of motion picture film stock. And that's how it came to be the size that it has. It's a 4x3 sensor. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Hear me better?
Yeah.
Alright, so as I said, Aleph was designed to emulate the geometry, dynamic range, and the color performance of motion picture film. It was, it's called Aleph 3 because Aleph 1 was actually developed for our film scan. And the sensor is implemented in the Alexa cameras, the Amira cameras. We can be run in 3 different modes: 16:9 mode, 4x3 mode, and the open gate mode. The 4x3 mode was a necessity for shooting with anamorphic lenses, while the 16:9 mode complies with the requirements of HD deliverables. So with that sensor geometry, we're able to support a number of legacy aspect ratios from the film world, from letterbox 239 letterbox extraction to 4x3 scope, 185, 178, everything in between. So this is what the sensor looks like. It has a Bayer pattern, a Bayer mask applied to it, and we can now, with the new media, we can actually record the entire sensor array. So we can record what we call full gate. What makes this sensor special are a number of things. Number one, we have settled for a very large pitch, pixel pitch. That is, the photo sites themselves are very big, very large, and the electronics that are usually sitting on the sensor have been removed to an external board. So the analog to digital conversion is not done at the sensor level, it's done behind it. That allows us for a very high field of the sensor in terms of sensitive area. And we are doing this to achieve very high quantum efficiency. That means that we can achieve a high dynamic range ultimately. We are doing this with a method that was new at the time to read the same photosite and process it in two different pathways. So one for high level of exposure, one for low lights. And that's done in parallel, and it's done with the essentially discrete ADD converters. So there are two 14-bit ADD conversions for each photosite, and the images are processed and stitched back together into a 12-bit log image. So it's emulating dual exposure, but instead of being done sequentially, it's done in parallel at the same time. So we don't like to call it HDR because it's not done sequentially. It's done using a single frame, process a high gain image, low gain image, and we achieve 14.5 stops of latitude. But it's not just a sensor. There is a lot of expertise in image processing and also in the hardware that's been developed, circuitry to do the processing in real time. So the attributes that our pictures are known for are the high dynamic range, the low noise, high channel purity, natural skin tones, and true colors. Now, Alexa has been known for its performance in the HD mode. This year we have introduced the UHD and the 4K Cine mode. And I don't know if the projector will do justice to the slide. You can see. So this is a photograph taken with the same camera, same sensor, same lens, same distance, using a backlit asset chart. And this is a cropped view of the chart. It shows you the difference in picture clarity between the HD mode and the UHD mode. The enhancement in clarity is pretty significant. So, how do we monitor this UHD and 4K images on set? Our cameras are able to record, compress, and preview at the same time, both in HD and UHD. Whether you record 4K Cine, which is faster than 96 pixels across, or whether you record UHD or HD, we have parallel processing. So the Steadicam operator can have his HD monitor on his sled, while the director can be looking at the 4K feed at the same time. That's accommodated in the camera. How do you feed that signal, 6G signal of HD SDI? How do you feed that into a monitor like this one? Aja and Blackmagic today offer solutions to convert the SDI feed into HDMI and feed into the television. So on the right side of the screen, you see the back of this television set. There are no BNC connections. So this is a very straightforward method to look at the images. I'd like to show you now two short clips. I'll turn to the ADI. These are flowers, for those who can't see, and for those who can't hear, flowers don't make any noise. For those of you who attended an AB, we're showing the same footage on a different Samsung UHD set that is described as the high dynamic range HD set. The difference is significant in terms of dynamic range performance, but I was surprised to see in preparation for this meeting, because I could not get a hold of the high dynamic range clip. So we had to render the clips specifically for the high dynamic range display, which was really showcasing the true performance of the sensor, but unfortunately it's not a standard platform. No one at home has a high dynamic range UHD set. So this is what the TVs are actually capable of showing today, but it's not being faithful to what the cameras actually record. Okay. So which of our cameras are capable of recording UHD in 4K? This year we have the Amira, which records UHD in ProRes 444 and CFast cards on board. We now have, starting this summer, the Alexa SXT that will record ProRes XQ, so it's the flavor above 444. It will record it up to 120 frames per second in full gate mode. We have the Alexa 65 that for now only records in RAW, doesn't record in UHD, and that process is done in post. Just to give you a frame reference, the sensor size of the Alexa 65 is 3 times larger than the Alexa sensor. Consequently, you have 3 times more data, 3 times larger files. And the latest addition to that is the Alexa Mini, which does record in UHD, XQ, and 444. We will do it in 16:9 mode and in 4:3 mode to accommodate anamorphic images. So a number of improvements have been brought to the Alexa line this year, namely improved image quality. It's not just a new codec to record 4K HD, it's a new deburring algorithm, advanced pixel correction, internal noise reduction, so significant picture quality enhancement that are required for UHD deliverables that were not necessarily visible in the HD deliverable platform. We have new color management across all 3 camera models. That means internal 3D LUT, Rec 2020 Gamma, live grading with Wi-Fi, and also what we call super flexible onset monitoring, the ability to simultaneously look at the Rec 709 image, a Rec 2020 image, or log C image all at the same time. So you've seen the sensor at the beginning, and we're talking about deliverables in 4K. How do we do this? We upsample the photo side count of the sensor before essentially deburring and selecting a geometry for the output format. So in 16:9 mode, we use 3200 pixels across 1800 high. We apply an upsample factor of 1.2, and that's how we end up with the geometry conform to UHD 4K. In open gate, we actually get 4096 to 160. How do we record that? We have new drives that accommodate an hour of ProRes 444 4K Cine, that is 1 terabyte per hour. And we have a pretty clear definition of our market segments, our target market segments, HD, 2K, UHD, and 4K, all with the same sensor, with different codexes, different recording media, but all based on the same sensor, so same color science, same picture quality. This is a preview of the Holy Trinity, where, in our opinion, contrast is sitting at the top. That's what gives us dynamic range. Color and resolution are in second position. And that's it. Under 10 minutes.
All right, next up we have Bob Caniglia of Blackmagic Design, who's a senior regional manager of Eastern North America. It was great. The recent new addition of Blackmagic team is Sean Manton, our very own, based here in the GTA. So it's great to have someone local that we can call on to get the support of their experts up here for our trading and section activities. So without further ado.
Hello.
You're not doing okay?
No.
You're doing everything? Yep. All right, focus down below.
Focus down below because the Mac doesn't play well with the projector from here. Hi everybody, I'm Bob Canelia from Blackmagic. I actually came to Blackmagic about 5.5 years ago with the acquisition of DaVinci. So I worked at DaVinci for 5 years before. So on that Friday, I was the youngest guy at Da Vinci, and on Monday, I was the oldest guy at Black Magic. Kind of a rough weekend. But, it's been almost 6 years now, and obviously grown tremendously in product line, which is part of the reason why we're here today. At NAB, we talked about some new acquisition developments. We actually had 38 new SKUs that we added at NAB, and I only have 11 minutes and 20 seconds, so I can't get through them all, so I'll get through the ones that are important to this conversation. One thing is we developed, I'll go back to one, we have our own horse now. But we talked a lot this year about Ultra HD, about both 12 gig SDI and 6 gig SDI, depending on frame rate. 12 gig SDI obviously gives us the ability to do up to 60 frames per second, and so with that we introduced a couple of different products that do acquisition at 30, 60, to 120 frames in RAW. So we have three new sort of Ultra HD cameras, and from the little one, which, as they say, sometimes size matters. And so that is our new micro studio camera. And I brought a tennis ball. I didn't bring a camera, but I brought the tennis ball to show that it's basically this big before you put a lens on it. And the idea being that it's now the world's smallest Ultra HD studio camera. And the ability that it gives you is it's a remote camera that can be controlled through a port that we have on the side. I'll show you in a second. But the idea that you can put it almost anywhere and use the PTZ and even the B4 lens mount controls out of this port. So we call it a very hackable camera, so that people can build all kinds of things to be able to get Ultra HD, both in and out of the camera, and the input necessary so that you can control the camera's setups through the software in the ATEM switcher line that we have, so that you can actually remotely control the cameras through SDI or fiber, if you have a fiber connection there, that we have other products that do that. So very small camera, obviously has a micro four thirds mount that's adaptable to put on all kinds of lenses as they are, and I brought one for Stosh. So big Fusion lens. They're obviously at this point, all you're doing is supporting the lens, and the camera just kind of hangs off the back. But it's just it allows you to do Ultra HD in places that currently they're doing SD, but the size, being the size of a tennis ball and a lens, is extremely unique, and one that I think that will give way to a lot of people maybe doing this kind of rigging, but also the ability to do this and something like this. In traditional acquisition, we also have the ability to we added another camera this year, so we have Ursa, which is the original camera that we announced last year, and part of the Ursa line was the ability to upgrade that sensor if and when a newer sensor came available. We did introduce a new sensor, which I'll get to in a second, but we also introduced a second camera called the Ursa Mini, which is it's about 3 kilos and in weight, and has a flip-out 5-inch screen, dual CFS, and it will do record Ultra HD in RAW. Actually, so it's above that. So we'll do with the 4.6K sensor, it'll be 4600. So record over 4K RAW, both compressed and uncompressed RAW, and a variety of codecs from ProRes, including the new ones. And that is a dual CFast inboard, so you're recording everything RAW, whatnot, everything's inboard. Onboard recording. And part of that new 4.6K sensor is the one that we've been developing with the company for a couple of years now to get to this point, so that we can have low light, because it's 15 stops of dynamic range, and it's 4.6K, so you can overshoot for 4K. The current Ursa users or owners can upgrade to this. It's a field upgrade. So they can buy a new sensor where you pull the front turret off that includes the sensor, put a new thermal pad on, put the new sensor and mount back in, and then tighten the 4 screws and put it in your business. The software has been developed over the last year to increase the frame rates of recording in Ultra HD to 120 frames per second in Ultra HD RAW, and the last one is now allowed you to do 180 frames in HD. So both cameras will be available with the original 4K sensor that we had, and then this new 4.6K sensor. So that just adds to more SKUs between the EF mount, PL mount, and then 4K or 4.6K. So at some point we're going to have to create some sort of Chinese menu that allows you to pick which camera you want, which lens and lens mount, and which sensor and size. The one other thing I wanted to point out about, let's go this way, the little camera, the new Mini, is designed to go from tripod to shoulder. The mount there, it's an optional shoulder mount that we have, also includes it clips right into to the tripod, and you take it right off, it goes right on your shoulder, so you don't have to remove anything, or so it's all built in there. It has turrets, and there's a handle that comes with the camera, but the shoulder mount kit provides an arm, so you can put it out front, so you can get it on there. And we also developed a new viewfinder. That viewfinder that you see there is the new Ursa viewfinder that fits with both the original Ursa as well as the Ursa Mini, and that has an OLED display inside, so it's a really high quality EVF, so that you can use both EVF and the flip-out monitors. The smaller one has a 5-inch flip-out, and the larger one has a 10-inch flip-out. They both have 12 gig SDI outputs, so and inputs, so you can control the cameras from the ATEM software. Just a couple more of the pictures there, and the idea being that what we've tried to create is a family of products that work in conjunction with the rest of the product line. At this point, and let's see, of the last presentation showed the new converter, one of the converters that we have. We actually introduced a whole new line of what we call Teranex Mini converters that are all designed for Ultra HD and 4K. So there's a lot of new converters for both fiber optic and getting to HDMI 2.0 from 12 gig SDI and a variety of up and downs. And also in the Teranex line, the Teranex Express, which we announced last year, which was originally just an up and down converter for Ultra HD, is now available to go from any standard to any standard. So it does 1,089 conversions. So you can go from 525 analog to Ultra HD at 60. So any of those conversions are all available on the box, and so anyone that purchased one of those originally can do the upgrade to the new software free, and now you have a full cross converter, so it does up, down, and cross to 1,089 different conversions. So I feel that one's really going to be something that will help in this transition, because obviously not everything's going to be Ultra HD the first day that people start doing things. I remember back in the day when we started doing D1 rooms way back when, and the first job after we built this great $1 million+ suite, the guy walked in with 2-inch tapes and a beta and a 3/4 and said, "All right, let's go." And go where? We should go back to the analog room, but that's just the nature of the beast of having to have the rest of the glue to go back. So there's a new 4K display that we made, not designed to be a grading room monitor like some that have come out, but just one for the machine room, so you can verify your 4K input. And so that 4K display, which we started shipping around January time, is out, and it has 12 gig SDI in, and you can plug anything, whether you put it in standard def, high def, or Ultra HD, it's all the same. And any of you that have used our current mini converters will also note that the new Teranex Minis have built-in power supplies, so you don't need the wall warts, and also it runs off of power Ethernet, so that way you have redundancy built in these little boxes. One of the other things that we did introduce that's not Ultra HD, but we have a camera that's as small as the original. It's actually, it was up in the first slide. I was hoping no one looked too closely, but I'll back up just to show it to you quickly before I run out of my time and get buzzed. this camera there, that one next to the tennis ball, oops, come back. Trying to show you the horse again. Let's go. Sorry. That one that's up by the tennis ball is actually a standard depth or HD camera that also records on an SD card. The form factor of it and the form factor of the studio camera are very similar, but that's also it's not available in Ultra HD, but it's there for HD. A lot of people were using the original pocket camera that we made to do that type of work, but the small micro studio camera is Ultra HD. So we're going to spin down to the end there just to recap. The new sensor for the 4.6K sensors will start shipping in July and August. We're going to try and get some of the upgrades to this new sensor. We're trying to get some of the upgrades out to the original Ursa users first before we start rolling out new units, just to catch them up as they want to upgrade to the new one. And also the micro studio cameras will be available into July as well. Hopefully the next time we're up in Toronto for one of the shows, we'll be able to have some of the new toys other than the tennis ball. So I thank you for your time, and we'll be back on the stage later if you have questions. We can wait for that later. Thank you.